And yeah, so I won't be surprised. They've just had, Motta took Bologna to the Champions League, and then that would be it. Oh, and then he moved to Juventus, though he was fired. Oh, maybe the Juventus team didn't spend enough money. We've got the money, we'll spend it. Wolverhampton will just say, okay, come on, manage us. And then that, I won't be surprised, like I said. So fingers crossed. But I don't think he would stay jobless for too long. But for the sake of his career, I think he should just work on his approach to games. He should stop being philosophical, like Yinka said.
Since our last episode, Juventus, our club in focus for today's show, has changed manager. Thiago Motta, the hot cake of last summer, was sacked surprisingly, and Igor Tudor has been brought in to ensure Champions League qualification over the next 9 games. Now, there has been talks of Juventus. Currently, Juventus are actually fifth, Bologna are fourth, and even Milan in ninth have been brought back into the equation of the top four finish. Yinka, Igor Tudor, do you see him making the Champions League in these 9 games?
Well, it's 50-50. I think it's possible. But at the same time, because they have a lot of teams that they are competing with. They've got Bologna, they've got Milan, obviously, like you said earlier. In fact, Roma, that was dead and buried previously, are now back in the race for Champions League. You've still got Lazio. I think Fiorentina might even still be in the race. So we've got about 5-6 teams fighting for just one spot. So that makes it a bit difficult. If it was just, a race between two teams, it would give Juventus more of a chance. It's possible. Igor Tudor is a fine coach. At least his records, says that. He's got experience with coming in the middle of the season to try to revive teams, and even if it's to keep them up or to achieve some sort of objectives, he's got that experience and he's done well. He's also started the season well with some teams as well. If I remember, it was at Marseille, where he did well with Marseille before he left. I think it was at the end of the season due to disagreement with ownership. But he's got experience. He knows the club as well. He used to be a former Juventus defender. He knows Serie A as a coach, because it's one thing to play in Serie A, it's another thing to coach in Serie A. Contessao, for example, played in Serie A. But we can say very well how he struggled with Milan since he came back as a coach. But Igor Tudor has coached at Hellas Verona, has also coached more recently at Lazio. So he knows what it means to coach, in the league. But I would give him a very good chance. He's got a short contract, so he's also got a lot to prove, because he wants that job. You would see from the way he's speaking that he wants that job long term. So he probably sees this as some sort of internship to try to gain, be 1 year or 2 more years, 2-year contract. It's possible,
Okay,
but the chances are slim as well.
let me run you through some of those 9 matches.
So, wow.
He's starting against Genoa, at home to Genoa. Then he's going away to Roma. At some point, he's going to go away to Lazio. At some point, he's going to go away to Bologna. That's Roma, Bologna, and Lazio. 3 teams in the same race with him.
Okay, so that's what makes it. That's actually what makes it, quite interesting, because win all of those games, then you put yourself in the perfect position to qualify for the Champions League, where you're basically taking 3 points off 3 teams that are competing with you. Now, can you win those games, considering the psychology of the Juventus team as when Thiago Motta left, considering the results that they've gotten this season? That's left to be seen. I do think they have the quality to say win against. Bologna will be hard. because they're playing Bologna at home is a different animal completely. Lazio, they can get a result against Lazio. Roma on that area have also been excellent. But I would even argue and say Genoa, this is their next game against Genoa. It's not even going to be, a walk in the park because Genoa under
At all.
Patrick Vieira have also been, quite decent and, they've
Compact.
pulled their weights against some things. So the best thing that I can do at this point would be to take it one step at a time. Do not look too far ahead. Do not look at those teams that you have in 5 years' time. Take Genoa first. Try to get a win. Look at the next game. Look at the next game. And more importantly, focus on yourselves alone. Because if you start considering other teams, I think that team still has a fragile mentality. For example, when they were linked with, chasing the Scudetto or being in the Scudetto race, you can see what happened to them. They just lost maybe 2 or 3 games in a row. So we'll see how it goes. Let them beat Genoa first, and then next week we can talk about them.
Cars, what I do wrong on the
Motta.
pitch and off the pitch? What did you do wrong?
I think we've mentioned this earlier before now, and I don't think my opinion has changed. He was too rigid. He wanted things to work just the way he was only one thinking it in his head like that. He wasn't carrying along every other person. Or probably every other person in the team, every other member of the team couldn't really interpret exactly what he was thinking in his head on the field of play. I think was it in one of their last 3 games. I can't remember exactly who they were playing against, and he had Vlahovic available, and they were leading them, but still didn't bring him into the game of play. At least you needed somebody to score. You decided to bring in someone from a different position entirely, which shows that it's either you are vindictive or you have, because it's almost same thing as playing in Leverkusen as well. You can't do these things and expect to get good results when you're being vindictive on players. It's more of an achieve. If you win, you win together. If you lose together. But I think what affected him most was more tactics than any other thing, if you ask me.
Yinka, I want you to buttress on what Kasa said. Well, I want to add to that question, to your question, and it's on the surface, the coach always seems like the sacrificial lamb. In Juventus' case, the management, and I'm speaking specifically about the sporting director now, Giuntoli, did he do right by Thiago Motta in your opinion?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. At the end of the day, this world or football world is a dog eats dog world. And I think that when I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but when shit hit the fan, so to speak, Giuntoli, owed himself the responsibility of saving himself. But if you look at the situation holistically, you would know that this is not entirely Thiago Motta's fault. I agree with Kaz that Thiago Motta is, quite rigid. I think I've mentioned here that he's what I would call a philosophy coach. He has a philosophy and he wants to stick to it. He has a certain kind of players that he needs for his system, and he wants those players to be available before he can deliver results. But in modern football these days, especially with clubs that are struggling financially, you just have to make do with what you have. Or you still have a sporting director, Cristiano Giuntoli, that has provided players for him, knowing fully well that he had a specific way of playing. I mean, you saw him at Bologna last season, over the past 2 seasons. We saw him at Spezia. In fact, before he started coaching senior team football, it was reported that this guy saw football horizontally rather than vertically, and he saw the field as a 2-7-2
272.
formation rather than the traditional 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, 4-4-2 that most people would see. So this guy had a particular way of thinking and looking at football. And you saw this over the years with the way that he liked to play at the clubs that I coach. So if you are going for a coach like that, knowing that it requires certain players to do well, then
To
you need to get
function.
him those players. But you just went into the market, went after what I consider shiny toys. Is Coop Miners available? Let's pay 60 million for him. Is Nico Gonzalez available? Let's pay 40 million for him. Is Contessa available? Let's take him on a loan to buy for 40 million, or how much is it? And you just got all of those players, forgetting the fact that you still have a Vlahovic up front that is never going to work in this Thiago Motta system. Forget the fact that he's actually the highest goal scorer. Before he was appointed, I kept hammering it that there's no way that Vlahovic is going to work in this system. But you only need to look at the way Zexi played and the way Vlahovic plays to know that if Thiago Motta is going to play that same system that he played at Bologna, at Juventus, there is no way that Vlahovic is going to. Vlahovic plays like, I'm not going to disrespect him, but everybody knows my opinion of Vlahovic. Now, Vlahovic is not going to fit into that system. So you have a sporting director that spends all of this money, over 200 million, and nobody's pointing the fingers at him to say, oh, you actually brought this guy. This guy is not performing. You bought him enough
Exactly.
players, and then we're struggling. We were beaten, we were thrown out of the Coppa Italia by Empoli, City, not even their big team. City, we were thrown out of the Champions League by PSV. And then we're
PSV.
struggling to even qualify for the Champions League. Champions League, which means a lot for their finances, by the way. So, unfortunately, they're waiting for the season to end before making a decision on Giuntoli. But there's no way you want to look at this thing from a holistic perspective and not point fingers at Giuntoli.
Cass, I want to ask if you agree. I'm sure you agree with Yinka, but I just want to ask now, what next for Thiago Motta?
That teams that will be willing to pass on him is, yes, we are the one, I think, looking at him in a more critical angle. There will be some other teams that, just by the mention of Thiago Motta, they would want to have him in their team. And so I won't be surprised. They've just had, Motta took Bologna to the Champions League, and then that would be it. Oh, and then he moved to Juventus, though he was fired. Oh, maybe the Juventus team didn't spend enough money. We've got the money, we'll spend it. Wolverhampton will just say, okay, come on, manage us. And then that, I won't be surprised, like I said. So fingers crossed. But I don't think he will stay jobless for too long. But for the sake of his career, I think he should just work on his approach to games. He should stop being philosophical, like Yinka said. Different. As long as, like Yinka would always, as long as you're not Pep, nobody cares about your philosophy in football.
Just win the damn game.
You are going that way. Yeah.
Yinka, where do you see Motta?
Well, the only thing I disagree with Cass is Premier League. I don't, and that particularly because I don't think he speaks English. I've never heard him speak
He will
English
learn.
before. Well, he could learn, but that might take some time. If he does learn
Are
English,
you
then
whining
that
Spurs?
boosts his chances a bit. But I think he still has one more stint, possibly in Serie A. Depending on what happens, you'd be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised rather if a Roma comes for him possibly at the end of the season. Because that job would most likely be open at the end of the season. I'm not sure Ranieri intends to continue with them. Atalanta could also be open at the end of the season. So we have a few clubs that might have positions open, and I think that people understand that the Juventus case may just have been a flash in the pan, considering the circumstances. They might want to give him another chance. Serie A, maybe French league, considering the fact that he spent a lot of time at PSG and probably knows the language as well.
Well, in Syria as of today, going by all the rumors and reports, at the end of the season, there's going to be a lot of managerial merry-go-round. I think Inzaghi might be the only manager that is not changing job. Milan will change the manager. Milan is scouting for a manager. Napoli, there are talks of Conte leaving Napoli. Gasperini wants to leave Atalanta. Igor Tudor might not get the job permanently because of his profile. Roma Ranieri might will most likely be stepping down, so there is a vacancy there. So there will be a lot of merry-go-round. So I would not be surprised. Cass, you might be the one defending Thiago Motta next season, oh. Because you know when he starts with his
I
two
mean,
seven
Milan were
two,
interested before he
uh,
moved to Juventus,
Yeah,
so
yeah, they
it's
were
still
you
actually.
know,
possible.
I'm imagining that 272 at Milan. And the two will be Thiago Hernandez and Leao. Then the seven, just line seven players straight from defense to attack. Then the two on the other side will be Walker and Pulisic. Fantastic football. Cass, get ready. Still in Italy. There are two serious clashes this weekend. There's Napoli hosting Milan. Milan at night. How the mighty has fallen. There's Fiorentina hosting Atalanta. Atalanta are, I think, 6 points away from Inter. Fiorentina are in the mix for the Champions League. Milan keeps telling themselves they are in the mix for the Champions League, but you know, let's see what happens.
It's
Yeka,
not. It's not bad.
Napoli,
It's not
Milan.
bad.
Well,
What do you see happening in that match?
Napoli, Milan. Napoli
I know
won the
you want
first
a
leg
Milan
2,
win.
if I'm not mistaken. I think there was a Lukaku goal. I can't remember the person that scored the other one. But this time it's
Lukaku on Pavlovich moment.
exactly. I remember that goal. But this time the game is much more important. It has a lot of weight. Milan would still want to fight for whatever hope they have in qualifying for the Champions League. While Napoli, will also try to give all they have to try to wrestle the Scudetto from Inter. My only worry is I'm not sure if Conceição is going to prioritize the cup game in midweek over this one, because there's the Milan derby in the Coppa Italia semi-final, if I'm not mistaken, during the week.
Yeah.
And that gives him a better chance of competing for a trophy or fighting for a trophy, because there's just 3 games to go: home and away in semi-final and then final. Maybe he go to that properly. Probably see.
If he wins the Coppa Italia, he goes to Europa League.
He goes to Europa League, obviously, but he lives with, even if he eventually leaves Milan, he lives with his dead guy saying, "Oh, at least I won 2 trophies in 6 months." So no, you can easily point to that to CV and say, "Oh, as far as Milan, where I won 2 trophies," and then use that to maybe get other job. But I still think it's going to be an interesting game. Napoli's form before the international break was not particularly good. I think they had one win in 7 games. So it will be interesting to see how they react after the break. They needed that break so bad. I don't know how many of their players left for international duty. I expect that they would have had a considerable chunk of their players, representing their national teams. I think it's going to be a balance. I'm seeing it drop. Maybe a score drop. I wouldn't predict result. Maybe a 2-2 drop. But we'll see how it goes.
Are you whining Conceição? Cass, tell us the scoreline, Gary.
I think it will be a repeat of the first leg. I don't know exactly. Sometimes I find it hard to describe what style of play Milan is actually putting out
But he
when
said
we
he
get
didn't
up
have
I
the
can
style
tell you.
now. He told you he
I
doesn't
can
have the
tell you the
style.
style of play. Me, I can tell you the style of play. The style of play is
Okay.
called comeback football.
And then you can't do that against Napoli. You can do a comeback against
Lecce.
the likes of Lecce, Como, and the likes. You won't do that against Napoli, especially Napoli that is actually very hungry at the moment. They are hungry and they are angry at the moment. So, irrespective, I don't see Milan getting anything from the game. I think it's going to be a probably 3-1 or 2-0
Oh
That
wow.
is if even if Milan would know where the goalpost will be.
Oh wow.
But yeah, it will be. It might be like the balance. What will bring the comeback for Napoli in back into the Scudetto race?
Personally, I think that the only thing Napoli has over Milan in that game is home advantage. You know, the San Paulo Abi Maradona will be fired up. But in terms of the attributes of players that can actually punish Napoli, I think Milan has the best players to counter Napoli's style.
Who are those players? So
This
let
one
me
you are
ask you.
doing
Let
is
me ask
not
you.
good,
Who
though.
are those players? Who are those players?
The
Who
same
are those
players
players?
that we've come to know now, Rafael, Jimenez,
No,
and the
let
likes.
him
No,
cook.
no,
Let
no,
him
no.
cook.
Let me
Let
tell you
him.
Okay.
He's
something.
cooking.
Napoli know that they have to win that
Gas, he's
match.
cooking.
So Napoli is going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Napoli is going to try to come out to find a goal. Milan plays really well on the counter. Milan might tear them up on counter.
If Antonio Conte scores before Milan, you know the match is over.
Yes, I agree. But is this certain that they will score first?
With the way our
Milan,
defense is set up, I
Milan
don't
plays
understand.
comeback football. We concede first. We always absorb the goal first. No, let's talk about another thing.
Well, we'll see.
We hope for the best.
Yeah, we do.
I want us to talk about a league that we thought was a foregone conclusion, and that is the German league. As of this night, Leverkusen are just 4 points behind Bayern Munich, with Bayern Munich having a game in hand. They are on match day 27, 7 games to go. Both teams have played home and away. With Bayern's inconsistency this season, I genuinely feel if they do not win tomorrow, they put themselves in a very precarious situation. Yinka, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so firstly, it's actually 3 points.
3.
Yes, three
Wow.
points. With Bayern Munich having a game in hand. I just checked. But I've also seen that Bayern are actually playing St. Pauli. Normally, you would consider that game a foregone conclusion. But considering Bayern's form recently, especially, I think they drew against Bochum, or was it loss against Bochum? And they've
Just a
lost.
loss.
4-3 loss.
They've lost some games that you would not
So is it
expect. You wouldn't expect them to lose. They dropped points in some games that you wouldn't expect them. It's difficult to say to say for a fact or with all conviction that Bayern can actually bring this title up. And like we said on this show previously, the biggest problem that we've had with that team has been Vincent Company. Company has shown inexperience in during certain periods. Now, when you consider the fact that the Champions League is coming soon, I don't think it's this week. I think it's the upper week. I'm not sure.
8.
like
Upper week.
Upper week. Champions League is coming soon. He would probably start fancying his chances, especially because you're in the quarterfinal already and you're quite close to the final. So I don't know if he'll be able to handle that pressure. I don't know if that squad will be able to handle the pressure as well. They've lost Alfonso Davies. They've lost Manuel Neuer to injuries as well. Leverkusen look like they're in better form. If they lose tomorrow, I genuinely think that Leverkusen can win the Bundesliga. If Bayern Munich lose tomorrow, or even if they drop
again?
points tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Well, I will say almost the same. We are forgetting the what do you call it? The hurricane effect as well.
Let's not be superstitious.
Well, I'm not trying to be. I'm just saying, like, bro, history don't just happen by mistake, and when they repeat themselves, it's the reason why it keeps repeating itself
Come on.
like that. So
If it happens again, then that guy needs to come to Nigeria for proper cleansing. If it happens again,
because he has never been this close to winning a
well,
trophy
I
in
think it
a
was. Well,
long.
he has never been. I don't think he has been this close. I wanted to mention the season that Leicester won the Premier League. I think it was between Leicester,
Yeah,
Tottenham, and
and
at some
and
point
Tottenham.
Chelsea.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
then
But
Tottenham.
then Tottenham never led the table. It was Leicester leading almost all through.
That's
They were
true.
just close. In this case, they are close. They are the one leading, and now,
They were leading by
well,
like 9 or 10 points.
but the thing is, I had the same argument with a couple of my friends on another podcast, and then I said there's a difference between when you are playing in the league and when you are playing in the Champions League. It's a different ballgame entirely.
That's true.
In the league, you can struggle against Como, Monza, Genoa, Lecce, and you'll be wondering. Imagine, what's their name? Napoli couldn't score one goal against Venezia. Venezia that has been conceding back to back to back to back. They couldn't score one goal. So, but then when you now interpret, when you now start comparing the likes of, oh, if I bring a team from this league into this league, it will make a major difference. It will do this. You see that it doesn't work that way. You cannot say now we are talking about Bayern and Pauli. Like you said, it's supposed to be a stroll in the park based on who they are on paper. But because it's the league, and because Pauli understands how Bayern plays, they know how to get at Bayern. The way they will play will be different from if Bayern is playing in Newcastle tomorrow. The game will be entirely different. So I pray for Bayern. I wish Harry Kane all the best, because
I
I'm not
pray
even
for
wishing
Harry
Bayern. Bayern
Kane.
has won the league more than enough.
And
I'm
and
praying for Harry.
and
It's
the
Harry
funny
Kane that
thing
needs the
is,
player.
St. Pauli actually need that game because they are also fighting for their lives.
Can
So
you
you can
I
imagine?
imagine.
wouldn't say for their lives, but they are close to the relegation zone, and every point that
They
they
need
can get
to
is also very
7 games
important at
to
this
go.
point. Yeah,
So they are gunning for points too.
exactly. So
Man,
it's going to be, if they drop points tomorrow, I strongly believe that Bayern Leverkusen will win the game because the pressure will be on Bayern, and they have Champions League as well. I do not think they have the mentality to handle that pressure. I just do not think so, especially company.
for their sake and for the sake of Harry Kane, I hope they handle that pressure and I hope they see this one over, because if Alonso should do back to back over Bayern, then they're probably going to name a city after him.
Of course, of course.
Uh Anyways, finally I want us to discuss about a player I saw. I stumbled upon a tweet and a video on TikTok, and I said this is something we have to discuss. And that player is Jadon Sancho. And I want to ask, in a very simple statement, where is Sancho playing next season?
Hmm. Well, the situation is delicate because you have a player that currently belongs to Manchester United and is on loan at Chelsea, but he finds himself in a situation where both clubs, I do not think that both clubs want him.
They don't want him.
So, one of the reasons that they don't want him is that, from the obvious reason that he has not been performing. The other reason would be that his non-performance comes at a very, very hefty cost because he has a lot. If Chelsea is going to make the move permanent, they're going to have to pay quite a lot of money as well. So nobody wants to take that kind of risk. Like one of these influencers, you say, I can't remember his name. You say, "Let me give you financial advice." You are taking a
Layu
financial risk.
Wasabi.
You are taking a financial risk. So that's a very, very big financial risk as far as I'm concerned. I would advise that he takes the Rashford route. Look for a club that is not particularly a small team, but might not actually be top tier team as well in terms of how they contest for trophies on a regular basis. Go to an Aston Villa or a Newcastle where you can then get game time consistently, hopefully rediscover your firm, or return to Germany, because it looks like Germany has been a very good hunting ground for him since his career started. I mean, the best periods in that over his career where was at Germany. The best period he had was at Germany. Um, during his first stint at Dortmund, and then when he returned there on loan, he did very, very well. So I'll consider a return. I think Dortmund might actually be the only team in the world that would take him with open arms, considering how well he's done with them. So
Prodigal
I think
son.
I think he still has some options on the table, but those options are reducing with every poor performance that he puts in. And it's only a matter of time before we see another Dele Alli situation if he doesn't sit up.
Cass.
I would go in the route of Yinka, but I will add that let's not forget that Saudi is there, and they are willing to buy
Yes.
anything.
Yes.
They are willing to buy anything. So,
Even Saudi does not want lazy
but
players.
you think so? But there is for the PR. It's not exactly because it's lazy. They would buy him for the PR. Like, oh, we're bringing in one of England's top
For the
player,
flair.
to the league for the year. However, I don't know, and I just checked now. He's just 25.
Wow.
He's supposed to
Wow.
just start enjoying the ball now, and then he's just messing around. So I, in my opinion, I just feel the money getting in the hands of these guys are too much. Because if there is anybody that should be messing around, it should be the likes of the Rodrigo and the likes. But these guys are so composed on the field of play. They want to.
Crazy, man. You have players like Rodrigo that have won a lot, and they still put in 100% every time.
Yes. So, but it is what it is. I don't see, like I said, that's only the other destination that I think that comes to mind, Saudi. So, but let's see how it goes.
Is it gradually becoming a cultural problem for English players? This attitude towards work.
Well, I wouldn't say so. I would say we have less of those scenarios or less of those situations than than situations where players actually put in work. Because if you look at these situations over time, you would maybe point at maybe 2, 3, at most 4 players. Dele Alli, Rashford to an extent, Jadon Sancho to an extent. It's hard to point out.
Madison.
Well, is Madison really bad attitude wise like that?
Madison
Maybe
is a fine player with terrible attitude towards work.
maybe because I've not been paying too much attention to Madison. I do know he's a fine player, very fine player, but attitude wise, I'm not sure because, like I said, I've not been paying attention. But there are a lot of other players that are doing very well. Attitude wise, they put in the work. You still have the Jude Bellinghams, you still have the Phil Foden's, regardless of his form at the moment. You still have, players that turn up for Harry Kane has been there, over the years, and he's done really well. Most of their defenders also put in the work. So I would say these 4 or 5 are more like exceptions, and it's not. And if you look at most of these countries, Brazil and the likes, you would still find some of these
We have
players.
them there too. We have them there too.
I think it's normal. It's normal.
It's sad that the world will not enjoy a talent as good as Jadon Sancho. Sancho at Dortmund was unplayable. He dribbles effortlessly, and you would expect that this is the next big thing. And there's the ego and there's the wage. And personally, I feel there are clubs that want him, but they can't pay him. And the ones that can pay him can't withstand his tantrums. It's a big problem. But I agree with Yinka. He needs to look for an environment with less scrutiny, where he is not the main man, where when you're sharing the blame, he's not in front of the list for sharing the blames. And hopefully he discovers his form. He should not come to Italy, shall
I think those are the kind of players that AC Milan like. And we look at it now, Loftus Cheek.
I would rather take Grealish.
That Tammy Abraham.
I would rather take
Players with
Grealish.
Premier League experience. Just look at your history.
No, we can't afford
I
it.
think the only stumbling block would be his salary. AC Milan might not want to pay that salary. But if it's available for 20 million, AC Milan so far.
And that's our favorite transfer figure, 20 million. Anyways, it's been a nice time on the show. Reconnecting back with our fans and our viewers. Sincere apologies for the little break uh, in transmission. We are back now, and we are back to serve you. Please engage us on our social media platforms on Twitter, on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. The name is the Late Go Podcast. Finally, Eid Mubarak to our Muslim faithfuls. Thank you and God bless.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.